several young, athletic, experienced hikers went on a winter expedition in 1959. A few days later, they were all dead. The official explanation? An avalanche. And at first glance, that sounds simple. A tragic accident. Something that unfortunately happens in the mountains. So why, for more than 60 years, people still can't let this story go? Because the details don't make sense. Some of them ran more than a kilometer away, in freezing temperatures, half-dressed. Some without shoes. This young man, barefoot. This young woman, lightly dressed. Another, missing her tongue. And one of them with a crushed skull. So the question is, how could an avalanche do all of this? And more importantly, did it? Let's find out. All right, let's open the case. Here we have the victims, 9 experienced hikers. And here, our suspects. Avalanche, escaped prisoners, Mansi, military test, CIA, UFO. We're going to do this step by step. We take each version, we test it, and we remove what doesn't hold up. But first, we need context. This was not a random trip. In the Soviet Union at the time, there was a boom in winter expeditions. Young people went into the mountains as part of sport, culture, and prestige. And this group, they were not beginners. This was not their first expedition. They knew the risks. They knew the cold. They knew what they were doing. And Igor Dyatlov did not just take anyone. He carefully selected the group. Physical condition, experience, psychological stability. Because in a winter expedition, one weak person can cost lives. The route was officially approved, planned, registered. This was not spontaneous. Everything was structured. Everything was controlled, which makes what happened next even harder to explain. Let's build the timeline. February 12th, they were supposed to send a telegram, a simple message. We are fine. They didn't. February 15th, they were supposed to return. They didn't. At first, people waited. Then, they started to worry. February 26th, the tent is found. Empty, cut open from the inside. February 27th, first bodies found. February 28th, emergency investigation begins. March 5th, another body found. Search pauses due to snow. May 4th, final 4 bodies found. May 28th, case closed. Cause? A force they could not overcome. Which already sounds strange. But now, look at this. The first witness was questioned about the deaths on February 6th, even though the bodies were only found on February 27th. A typo? Maybe. But this is the Soviet system. Mistakes like that were not taken lightly. And then, another document. A memo dated February 15th, saying the investigator should go deal with the deaths, before the deaths were even officially known. Coincidence or something else? Searchers reported finding a military flask with alcohol, but Yuri Yudin, the only survivor, said There was no alcohol, and definitely no military flask. So, where did it come from? Small detail? Maybe. But this case is built on small details. Now let's go through the theories, carefully, because this is where most of the confusion comes from. Let's start with the most mysterious one. UFO. Where did it even come from? Some witnesses reported seeing a glowing object in the sky, a bright sphere, unusual. And from that moment, the theory was born. Now let's slow down. Seeing something strange in the sky does not automatically mean aliens. We don't know what that object was. Could be atmospheric phenomenon, could be military flare, could be something else entirely. But jumping from unidentified light to aliens killed 9 people is a very big leap. And here's the bigger question. Let's say, just for a second, UFOs are real. Why would they target a small group of hikers in the middle of nowhere? And why kill them by forcing them to freeze? That's not just unlikely, that's illogical. There is no motive, no mechanism, no evidence. So, this version we remove. Next version. Escaped prisoners. The idea is simple. Criminals escape from a nearby camp, attack the group, the hikers panic, run, and die in the cold. Sounds realistic? At first, yes. But then we check the facts. There were no recorded escapes in that area at that time. None. So, already, this version loses its foundation. Second question. What would the attackers want? Money? There was none. Alcohol? No. Valuables? Nothing worth the risk. And third, if a group of violent criminals wanted to kill 9 people, would they really choose this method? Scare them and hope they run, and then hope the weather does the job? That's not how violent crime works. That's inefficient. And also, there were no clear signs of a struggle, no defensive wounds pattern, no direct attack evidence. So again, this version does not hold. Remove it. Next is the Mansi theory. This one sounds more serious because it involves real people who actually lived in that area. The theory is the following. The group entered a sacred place, offended local beliefs, and the Mansi retaliated. Now, let's check that. First, there is no solid evidence that this specific mountain was sacred in that way. Second, the Mansi were skilled hunters. If they wanted to kill a group, they had weapons, they had experience, they had the ability to do it quickly, not by forcing people to run into the cold, but directly. And third, no signs of battle, no defensive chaos, no clear attack pattern. And most importantly, the Mansi actually helped in the search. They cooperated. They provided information. That is not the behavior of people hiding a crime. So, this version also goes. Now, the CIA theory. This one sounds like a movie. The idea is that some members of the group were involved in intelligence work, and something went wrong during a meeting with foreign agents. Again, interesting. But let's think logically. If intelligence services wanted to eliminate a group, would they do it like this? Force them to run into the snow? Hope they freeze? Leave behind a mystery that will be discussed for decades? That makes no sense. Real operations are clean, controlled, quiet. This is chaos, and chaos is the last thing intelligence agencies want. So again, dramatic, but not logical. Remove it. And now, we're left with the only 2 versions that actually survive basic questioning. Avalanche or something man-made. And this is where the real investigation begins. Let's take the official version, the avalanche. At first, it actually makes sense. Let's be fair, this theory explains some very important things. First, panic. If snow suddenly shifts, or if the group believes an avalanche is about to hit, they don't hesitate. They don't discuss. They act fast. Second, it explains why they left the tent so quickly. They didn't use the entrance. They cut their way out. From the inside, that tells us one thing. They believed there was no time, and an avalanche is one of the few things that could create that kind of urgency. Third, it explains why they didn't dress properly. If you think the mountain is collapsing on you, you don't stop to put on boots. You run immediately. So far, this theory works. It explains behavior, it explains panic, it explains the decision to leave the tent. But now, let's look at what it does not explain. Some of the injuries were extremely severe: crushed ribs, a fractured skull. But here's the strange part. There were almost no external wounds, no deep cuts, no visible trauma you would expect from a violent avalanche. It's as if the force came from something powerful, but not directly visible. Some of them were found far from the tent, over a kilometer away. Now think about that. If they ran to escape danger, why go that far? And more importantly, why not return? Because according to the footprints, at least some of them were still able to move, which means they had a chance, but they never made it back. The tent was still standing, partially damaged, but not destroyed, not buried under massive snow. Which raises the question, if a powerful avalanche forced them out, why does the tent still look relatively intact? Now we add everything else. The strange dates in official documents, the military flask, reports of lights in the sky. Each of these things alone might not mean much, but together they create a pattern, and that pattern doesn't fit perfectly with a simple avalanche. So here's where we are. The avalanche theory is not wrong. It explains a lot, but it doesn't explain everything. And that's the problem. Because in a case like this, the missing pieces matter the most. And if something is missing, we have to ask, what are we not seeing? Now let's look at the second major explanation. A man-made event, most commonly a military test, a rocket, or some kind of aerial explosion. This version didn't appear randomly. It came from specific observations. First, several witnesses reported seeing lights in the sky, bright objects, moving, unusual. Now, that alone doesn't prove anything. But in the late 1950s, military testing was active, and not everything was public. Now let's go back to the injuries. Some of them look like high-impact trauma, broken ribs, severe internal damage, but again, without clear external wounds. That pattern doesn't look like a simple fall, and it doesn't fully match a classic avalanche either. But it does resemble what you might expect from a strong pressure wave, something like a blast. Not necessarily direct impact, but force, sudden, invisible. Now we connect the dots. Strange lights, unusual injuries, and then the documents. Dates that don't match. Reports that feel incomplete. A case that is closed with a very vague explanation. A force they could not overcome. That's not a technical conclusion. That's almost a placeholder. And this is where the military theory gains strength. Not because we have proof, but because it explains why the explanation might be unclear. But here is the important part. This theory also has a problem. We don't have direct evidence of a specific rocket or a confirmed military accident in that exact location. No clear document, no official admission. And without that, this remains a hypothesis, a strong one, but still a hypothesis. So now we have two competing ideas: an avalanche, which explains behavior but struggles with details, and a possible military event, which explains the details but lacks direct proof. So let's step back, remove all the extreme theories. No aliens, no secret assassins, no dramatic fiction, just facts. 9 people, experienced, prepared, and something made all of them leave the tent, half-dressed in freezing darkness. And that is the detail I keep coming back to. Because one person can panic, 2 people can make a mistake, but 9 people don't make the same irrational decision unless they all believe they are in immediate danger. So the real question is not what killed them. The real question is what scared them enough to leave safety and walk into death. Was it the mountain or something else that night? Avalanche or something we still don't fully understand? And maybe the reason this story still feels disturbing is not because we don't have answers, but because none of them feel complete. If you had to choose based only on the facts we just discussed, which explanation makes more sense to you? The official one or the one that leaves fewer questions unanswered? Write your version in the comments.